Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
Today, I'm joined by Garrett Sullivan of GTS Ranch, located in central Oklahoma. Thanks for joining us, Garrett.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so grew up in North Texas, a small town when I was there. It's pretty big now, but Little Elm is kind of where I grew up and was raised, and I've been in Oklahoma since about 2009. And I teach full-time at the high school in the city that I live, and I also coach. That's a big part of my life, and so pretty busy, stay pretty hooked up.
What type of teacher and coach are you?
Yeah, so I teach a couple of different subjects. I teach business, entrepreneurship, digital, like graphic design, and then just a basic level computer science course.
So do the Longhorns ever come into play when you're, doing lesson plans or trying to give the students something real life to kind of assess?
Oh goodness, all the time. My business model and just advertising and all of that gets brought up pretty frequently.
Well, I'm sure they're happy to have some kind of real world, projects to look at. So that's nice.
Yeah, it's been really good. The kids love it, and there's been a few times they've actually come up with some neat projects for me. So
nice. And what sports do you coach?
So I coach football, wrestling, and track. I played football in college and have been doing that for most of my career. That's definitely my number one. And then wrestling and track, I do because I enjoy and just love to be around the kids and kind of give back. But I'm not as passionate about those as I am football.
That's awesome. So you're definitely busy then. So it's impressive that you find time to fit the Longhorns in as well.
Yes, you sound like my family.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you came up with your ranch name.
Yeah, so my grandfather, who actually passed away in January of 2022, started a cutting horse operation in 95, and we called that ranch Sullivan Ranch. It was down in a place called Crossroads, Texas, just south of Aubrey and kind of just north of Denton. And so grew up, just following him around, trying to, play cowboy. Just wanted to kind of pay a little bit of respect to him with naming our business and our ranch. We still own and operate that horse ranch down in Texas. My dad and I handle that. And so I wanted to kind of build something for my wife and I and our kids, and wanted to kind of keep the ranch name in it. And we were really close to just sticking with Sullivan Ranch and just kind of migrating things over, but just kind of ended up switching it around. And my wife's name is Tamara, and so that's where the T comes from. So GTS Ranch basically just stands for our names. Nothing too fancy.
That's nice, though, that you can take your grandfather's ranch, that happens to be the same name, and just adapt it a little bit to kind of the new part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really fun. And, even though he's not here with us anymore, I definitely feel him through the whole process. He's still been with us and a part of it. So it's been really good.
That's nice. So since we're not doing a video today, and everyone will hear this just over audio, try to explain what your brand looks like and maybe talk to us a little bit about how you came up with that idea.
Sure. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. Our brand, for people that have been in this industry for a long time, it's probably pretty busy. um, but we have, at the base of it, we have a T that kind of ties in with a G, an R, and an S. And the combination of those kind of on the lower half of our brand, they form a cross. And so my wife and I are Christians, and we are very fortunate in our day-to-day lives to be able to serve others in the roles that we have, and to disciple the people. And while I don't necessarily just broadcast it, we certainly wanted Christ represented in our business model and in our brand. And so it's kind of a fun way to tie in all those letters and components of our life. So, the G for my first name, the T for my wife, the top end of the T actually has a little bit of a Longhorn look. So that ties into, our business model. And really, it was a lot of fun. Started out on an index card, just kind of scratching around, and ended up progressing from there to a napkin. And from there, we took it to the computer. And, I think your brand it's definitely for your customers, but it's also for you. It's something that should represent you and something you should be proud of. And I believe that's what we've got.
So how close is your new brand to the brand that your grandfather used with the horse operation?
Very similar. Biggest difference probably being he had a diamond, and inside of the diamond were his initials, and they were layered very similarly to kind of the stacking and the style that we have on ours. So we felt like it was pretty busy already. So, we didn't throw anything on the outside or like a circle or a diamond, but it's very similar and kind of carries that same style.
You've talked to us a little bit about your grandfather, your father, your wife, and the roles that they've played in some of the decision making. Are there other family members involved with the operation, or do you want to elaborate at all on your father and wife's roles?
Sure. It's we're not a big operation, so it's a all hands on deck kind of thing. And with us, both having full-time jobs off ranch, it definitely takes everybody's help. My mother-in-law she's a country girl raised in Payton, Oklahoma, and she's been a huge help. She just kind of loves the lifestyle and is, just always kind of eager to help. And she's been pretty instrumental at several times. And my father he's more of an advice guy. He doesn't like to get into a ton of the decision making. He really likes to offer his advice and his input, but he's going to kind of let, me and my wife make the final decision. And it's been really good to have his leadership and his experience. And we really love having all the family be a part of this, because that was, a big reason why we started it, was just to carry on kind of our family's legacy.
So talking a little bit about the legacy, obviously we've covered the background in horses. What made you decide to get into Longhorns?
Yeah, so I've always been into pedigrees, and have always have really been interested in kind of researching and keeping track with that. We've got some cutting horses out of some of the greats, Coyote Cat, Metallic Cat, Highbrow Cat, Pepto Boonsmall, Smart Lena Boone, just that's kind of where it all started for me. And I'm a pretty large guy. I'm about 6'3", 300 pounds. And so I never really did as much cutting as my grandfather and my dad. And I just always ended up being the guy that kind of got stuck with running the back end, being a bigger kid and a stronger kid. I was always the guy that was, moving cows and calves into the practice arena, and just kind of got interested in cows, but I never really took an interest in Herefords or Black Angus or anything. I just have always thought that Longhorns spoke to the land, and just kind of everybody says that word majestic, but I really feel like it's true. There is just something special, whether it's Texas or Oklahoma, but something about the plains and those rolling hills and seeing, a bunch of head of big twisty horn cattle is just, that to me is the West and my past. And so when I, finally kind of got I guess you could say, the fear of, well, do I really want to branch off and do this? It's totally different from what my grandfather and my dad are into. I just started looking up certain breeders and kind of showing them things, and it was just, their reaction was equally as strong as my reaction. And I thought, okay, so they're into this too. And so we just kind of ran with it.
Now that you have Longhorns, what would you say your favorite part is?
Oh, my favorite part, probably calving season. It's tremendously rewarding to see all your hard work pay off, and just kind of see the fruits of your labor. But my son Maverick, he's 2, and he loves finding a calf on the ground. And he likes all the cows, but he knows all the calves' names. So I'd have to say that.
That's awesome. That's pretty impressive for a 2-year-old too, to remember all the names.
Yeah, it is. Anytime he's in my truck, I ask for the roll call, and he'll go down the list as far as he can remember. It's pretty funny.
That's awesome. Does he get to help name them at all, or is he not there yet?
He does. We excuse me. My wife and I both went to college in Stillwater, Oklahoma State. And there's a place there that we both really liked, named the Copper Penny. And our son Maverick, we were talking about one of our calves from last year, and we were wanting to kind of throw a Stillwater reference in for the name. And we threw out Copper Penny, and my son just kept saying, Penny, Penny, Penny. And so he actually was he was the person in charge of naming one last year.
That means that one can never leave your ranch now, right?
Yeah, we're in trouble.
Right.
That's right.
So you mentioned a little bit how kind of the pedigrees are what initially intrigued you about the Longhorns, in addition to them obviously being, very beautiful and unique. Walk us through how you got started. Where did you buy your first ones from? How did you find them? What were you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am typically not a person that's into a ton of research or studying. It really needs to be something that I have a great interest in. And so when something like that happens, what I start with is research, just ground level questions and, boots on the ground, investigative type questions. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And here in Oklahoma, where we're at, there's definitely not a shortage of Longhorn breeders. So I was really fortunate to be able to get connected with some key people early on. Michael White of CEO Cattle Company, Linda Regains of Lone Wolf Ranch, and then of course Stacy and Scott down by Gainesville and Era. Were just hugely helpful. I reached out to all of them, electronically, whether it was through Facebook or email, and laid it out there for them and was honest and just said, hey, I'm looking at starting this, but I've noticed these, things, and I have these questions. Would you have time? Would you be willing to? And, to my amazement, all of the people that I asked, said yes. And were, willing to talk on the phone or even have me come out to their property. And so really it kind of led me to the next choice of, how do I want to enter this industry? Do I want to, buy low and buy abundantly? Do I want to buy high and get quality? And I was kind of back and forth. And ultimately we just decided on starting small and focusing on quality over quantity, which I think, most successful breeders do. And so that led us to Stacy and Scott, the Schumachers. And so, I mean, I'm sure they've probably learned more about cows than I could ever. There's an old saying in coaching, that guy's forgot more than I'll ever learn, and so I really went to them, took a tour. My wife went with me, and we rode around the ranch in the truck with Stacy and asked questions and really just got a feel for it before we made any purchases or decisions. And when it finally came time to punch our ticket, we just kind of started narrowing down some of our favorite cows, some of our favorite sires. And we knew a couple of breeders that we wanted to work with, one being Dr. Lee and then Linda Regains out at Lone Wolf Ranch. And then the other being Stacy and Scott. A couple of factors went into that: location, proximity, and then just reputation and their style of business. And so ended up purchasing 2 confirmed bred cows from Stacy and Scott in February of 2022. And so we brought those back to Oklahoma and just kind of got our feet wet. And it's been fast and furious ever since.
So when you think back to that time that you were visiting the Schumachers and Dr. Reagan's herd, if you could go back in time, is there anything that you would change about how you got started, or maybe something you learned that is a piece of advice that you can give people who are thinking of getting their toes wet in the breed?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I would say is, you don't have to own land to do this. We're fortunate. Our family's fortunate to own some land in Texas, and then we lease a bunch of land up here in Oklahoma. And, I think there's this almost like this myth or this prerequisite that people assume, you have to own all this land to be able to do this for a living. And I think that, while that can be true, if you get your infrastructure and your leases and your equipment and everything set up and in place before you ever buy a cow, you're just going to do yourself a world of favors. I think that I would go back and I would probably slow down a little bit. I got very excited and just really into it, to the point where I was just, that was all I could think about. I was on my phone constantly, looking at cows ready to purchase, and there's a number of things that you can do on the back end, in your pastures and your business plan and your marketing. All of those things, I think are extremely important. And more time you can spend on those in the forefront, the better off everything will go when you start buying stock. Other than that, I would probably say I would go back and I would probably buy some like some beef steers. That wasn't on my radar at first. In fact, when I met with Stacy and Scott, I was pretty adamant that I was not going to butcher and sell Longhorn meat, and pretty quickly changed my tune. And I would say if I could do it over again, I'd go back and I'd probably buy some bred cows and go ahead and get, some steers or some butcher quality cattle to start that business as well.
Do you all offer beef for sale locally now?
We do. We butchered our first bull just this last year and sold through it really fast and had some really good feedback. People actually really loved it. And we immediately went back and bought a couple more steers and have really kind of we've dove into that just about as hard as I dove into pedigrees to start it all off. And I just think that if it's something that you can stomach as a person, and as long as you don't have any objections, personally, it just makes sense.
So you mentioned in your previous advice that you would maybe slow down a little bit. And the part that really stood out to me is where you talked about having everything ready and in place either on your land or your lease land before you ever buy an animal. Realistically, what is the time frame for something like that, do you think? Is there a general estimate that you could give folks who aren't there yet that, need to build that timeline in before they purchase animals?
Yeah, actually, I would say like a minimum of 6 months, and the reason why it would be just season change. A pasture and a lease or even your own property can change drastically with the seasons, especially where we're located here in Oklahoma. And if you're new and you're starting out, the last thing that you want to do is get into the middle of a lease, at the wrong time of the year, or walk it in the summer or spring and everything looks fine. And you come back out to put cows on it, in the winter, and you've got trees down on fences and things like that. I mean, I moved equipment. My goodness. I mean, there were so many things that I did the hard way because I wanted to check them off the list. I made a list of things that I knew needed to be done. And I was, in a hurry to mark them off and to say, yep, got that done. And, in the long run, I ended up working 10 times harder. I was hauling things from one pasture to the next. And, some of that's unavoidable and that's the nature of the beast. But, I would say anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And I think maybe some of that comes from my experience as a business teacher and helping young entrepreneurs. Just the more time that you can spend in thought and in plan mode rather than action mode, the better any business venture will be.
That's great advice. I would imagine maybe that preparing the land or making the shift from horses to cattle or any variety of things here that we've talked about could lead to some pretty good stories. If you had to pick your funniest Longhorn related story to date, what would it be?
Yes, we've got a few. Well, I'm not too proud to share this one. I moved a couple of cows onto a lease. A good friend of mine had, several acres that, just weren't being used, and it worked out well for us on paper. And so, get everybody loaded up and we get out there and drop them off and things are going pretty smooth, for a couple of weeks. And, I go back out there and we're kind of looking around and I can't find one of the bulls. And, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's in the bottom of this clearing. It's kind of the back of the property's got a big creek, and one of the neighbors is doing a bunch of dirt work and stuff. And so we kind of take off and we're looking around, and we ended up finding him a couple of ranches down, in a young heifer pasture. And just a couple of weeks ago, that neighbor contacted us and said, "Hey, I've got a calf on the ground," and they don't have a sire or AI or anything. They just they just had cows kind of for a hobby farm for pets. And so we drove over there, and sure enough, there's a there's a calf from our bull laying in their pasture. So I spared you a lot of boring small details throughout that story, but it was kind of chaotic. We're working through the pasture, and I had one longhorn cow that was a very protective mother, and we had to get through this particular section of the pasture to continue looking for the bull. And I did my best Heisman maneuver for sure. I think they might have been taking auditions for rodeo clowns if there had been any cameras involved, because I don't think I've moved that fast since my 20s.
Well, the important question is now, do you have a child support agreement with the baby you're naming?
That's right. Yeah. I did not take my son over there. I did not want him to name it.
That's funny. Shifting gears a little bit to focusing now on the specific herd that you're building, let's get a little bit more focused on animals. So what would you say that your goals and dreams are for your breeding program for the next year?
For the next year, we're looking really at a slow burn. I've got some semen that we've ordered and have got stored up at the old REI place in Stillwater. It's called Bonanza Stud Services now. And so we're going to kind of just take our time through 2023, learning the ropes of, getting cows in heat and getting them prepped for AI work. And we're going to try our best to really diversify and broaden our genetics through that. And I've got a young bull that I bought as a timeline son that I'm really excited about. He should be ready hopefully just under a year. So that's kind of the focus right now, is just slow growth and kind of continuing with that quality over quantity.
And what if I was to ask you about the next 5 years?
That's where it starts to get a little dangerous for me. So good thing my wife's not here today. I'm sure she'll listen to the podcast, but I have some big plans for the next 5 years. We're looking at actually selling the horse ranch in Texas and moving all operations and facilities and everything up to Oklahoma full time. So that will bring forth a lot of positive change, and we'll be able to really kind of broaden our whole approach. We'll be able to run, multiple cow pastures and hopes of really getting set up to run this thing full season and full time. I love coaching and I love teaching, but I'd love to be in a position, looking maybe even a little past 5 years, but I'd love to be in a position where I'm doing some coaching and teaching less, and I'm doing this a whole lot more. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to edit out that part. So you might want to give your wife a heads up before she listens then.
Okay, I'll text her.
So continuing talking about your animals, who would you say is the favorite in your pasture right now?
Oh, the favorite in our pasture right now is probably Penny. my son's heifer calf. She's a beautiful, thick Cowboy Remedy daughter. Um, I really, I'm really excited about her. I bought a couple of other heifers this year that were actually about 5-6 months older than her, and when I brought them out to the pasture where I had her, just her conformation and her size and everything, it was quite shocking to see the difference but between them. I knew she was a great one the moment she was on the ground, but just being able to kind of compare her against, some other breeders' work and some other bloodlines, it was just really evident that she was special, and we're really excited about her.
That's a great segue to this next question. So, who is your favorite all time in your pasture or not Longhorn cow? And talk a little bit to me about the traits that make her your favorite.
Okay, yeah. So, big Dragon Pearl fan, but probably Hidden Assets would be one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of the twist. I know that's really kind of making a comeback. I know that, there's a lot of people that are after horn and total horn and tip to tip. And while that's definitely important to me, kind of going back to what I said earlier, when I think of a longhorn cow, not a bull, but a longhorn cow, I think of a very, feminine, but properly conformed and colorful twisty horn cow. And I think Hidden Assets is that exactly. I'm a big fan of the traditional colors. I know, everybody's getting into the brindle and the spots and the grula, and I think that those are beautiful and they're really breathtaking. But I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Sometimes I really just love her traditional look.
And that's another Schumacher bred cow, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. You're noticing a trend, Molly.
a little bit, but I wasn't going to comment on it. Now, if you answer this next question with a Schumacher bull, then I'll know that
we're in trouble.
Right? So if you had to name your favorite Longhorn bull, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so Timeline, without a doubt. I love the disposition and the overall size. You could take Timeline's horns off and I would still be pretty impressed. It's just he just looks like a stately bull. It's just every picture you see of him, he's massive. He's got just a great disposition, and I love his coloring. I've got a big red beard, so we named our bull calf that's his son. We named him Big Red, and so I'm pretty ate up with Timeline. Close second would probably be Lineup. Just going in a different color direction, but I don't have anything but good things to say about that whole gene pool, really.
And so both of those bulls you mentioned are Dickinson bred bulls, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So a little bit of a trend there too, then.
Yeah. Yep. You're right.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions.
It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more.
And now, back to the podcast.
So the next question on my list is who your favorite overall Longhorn herd or Longhorn breeder would be. And I almost feel like I need to catch you off guard and say that it can't be Schumacher's or Dickinson. You have to pick someone else, but I won't do that. I won't do that to you, but I'll be curious to hear your answer.
Okay, well, you're actually going to be surprised. It's not one of those two. While big shout out, obviously, to both of those breeders. They're doing excellent things for the industry and for themselves. But I have one that's kind of close to where I grew up, DCT Cattle Company, down in Sanger, and I also am a big fan of Harrow Ranch out here in Oklahoma. I would say that if I had to pick between the two, I would probably pick Harrow Ranch.
And what specifically do you like about their operation?
Well, the length of time that they've been, been involved with this, and just their overall story. Both of them are very friendly and will tell you about their humble beginnings and how they started, and they've grown to a massive operation. But they don't, in my opinion, they don't really flaunt it, especially coming from the horse world. You can be a weekender and be just as good as some of these guys that go all year round, and I don't know if this is an accurate representation, but I feel like they kind of give me that vibe. Like they're legit, they're doing it right, they're doing all the things that you want to see done, but they're not throwing it in your face.
I love that. That's a great observation. Before we switch gears and talk a little bit more about your website and how you use the internet to market your herd, is there anything else you'd like to share about your breeding program that we didn't cover?
Yeah, just if anybody wants to reach out, if you're new or you've been doing this a long time and something I've said so far is strikes you as odd or unusual or interesting, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to continue networking and love to continue to just grow in this industry.
And does that even apply to OU fans?
No, it doesn't.
Oh man, okay.
That was good.
Well, let's talk about websites a little bit. So if you had to say or if you had to guess the average amount of time you spend per week looking at Longhorn websites, what do you think it would be?
Oh gosh, I actually think I have a pretty close number because of the screen time feature on iPhones. Probably, honestly, 3 to 4 hours a day. Hopefully, my bosses aren't listening to that, but that's probably the truth. If we've got a down minute, really just about anywhere, whether I'm mobile and it's on the phone or I'm stationary at the desk at home or in the office. If I'm caught up with work or if I'm at a place where I feel, confident with my time management, I'm gonna I'm gonna dive down that rabbit hole pretty quick. So
that's probably a fair amount of sites that you look at in a week. Then what pulls you in about a website, or what turns you away about one?
Yeah, I would say I'm a big fan, obviously, of Hired Hand and what you guys offer, but you're absolutely right. There's a huge difference in so many of these sites. I think the first thing that draws me into somebody's site is it clear, easy to read and digest. I don't like to come to your site and see a bunch of noise and clutter. And I'm not saying this because breeders need to change their website to match my needs, but just speaking honestly, when I go to your site, if it's got 17 different colors and grainy photos and stuff like that, it's not that I don't think you have a quality product. You just aren't, in my opinion, taking the time to make that represented well on your site. And so what other areas or is that happening in? And so I love a simple 2-3 color combo. I love the websites that have small snippets of information. I don't really want to read a novel when I go to your site or I click on a page. I love background information and I love context. There's no doubt about that, but certainly just clear and concise and visually pleasing is definitely what I'm looking for.
What are the last 3 Longhorns or Longhorn websites in your search history?
Oh gosh. Okay, let me pull it up because I was actually on them before we talked. Yep. So guilty as charged here again with the Schumachers. So I was on their sale pen today, and I was on Dickinson Cattle Company this morning looking at some semen, and then I was actually perusing around on DCT Cattle Co.'s website early this morning. They've got a young cow that I'm pretty interested in.
So sticking with your favorites, then I see.
That's right.
Thought maybe you've had one to surprise me, but not so far.
No, I'm pretty easy to guess.
Let's talk about your own hired hand site for a while. How long have you been live?
So we've been live for a little under a year. We don't have an incredible amount of animals on there, and so I was a little hesitant to start just with such a small herd. But again, noticing trends. I mean, the people that are doing this and doing it well, and what I believe to be doing it right, they're utilizing you guys and your software. And I wanted people to know from the beginning that when they come to GTS Ranch, or when they call us, that they're going to get quality. And I think that you guys do that for me.
Awesome. So being the business teacher that you are, this next question will probably be pretty easy. But if you had to describe your own website in 3 words or less, what would they be?
Clear, concise, and functional.
Love it. Talking a little bit about social media, what is your go-to social media when you're looking to buy new Longhorns?
Oh, that one's tough. It really is tough. But if I'm going to buy, if we're sticking with the question, then I'm going to say Facebook. Love Instagram, a lot of good content and everything there. But in terms of actually buying and communicating, Facebook.
And what about your go-to social for promoting your own Longhorns?
Definitely Instagram. With me being a teacher and around, Gen Z and these younger individuals, while I know they're not the ones with the pocketbook buying my beef or my cows, they're definitely a good representation of where marketing and where strategies are headed. And so, I try to kind of keep it young.
Are you on TikTok at all yet, or are you strictly just on Instagram and Facebook?
I'm just on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I say just, like that's 3. You would think that'd be enough, but no, I'm not on TikTok. I know that there's a pretty good market there, and some of your podcasts and some of your videos, your truck confession videos that I've watched. I think there are some breeders out there that are doing great stuff on TikTok and get a ton of traction. I am not that creative. Like, honestly, my wife, if there's anything that we put out there on the web that you guys like, you can just go ahead and thank Tamara. That's not me. She's she's the creative one, and she's really been helpful with that.
That's awesome. So previously you mentioned that you like Instagram for both your beef and the registered herd. Do you separate those marketing tactics at all, or are you doing it all from the same account?
I do it all from the same account currently, just because we don't have a massive amount of traffic. I feel like that would dilute the audience and be kind of ambiguous. And so we just keep it, through one account for now. And we try to stagger and rotate, pictures and posts about the herd, and then pictures and posts about beef and benefits of Longhorn beef over others.
And who's the photographer in the family? Is it you or Tamara?
Well, it depends. Tamara's definitely right now. We're expecting a little boy next week on Thursday, and so she is, bless her heart, she is measuring 44 weeks, and we're only actually 38. So she has taken on the role of photographer for about these last 9 months.
Well, I hope everything goes well. By the time the podcast comes out, I'm sure we'll be able to add a little announcement at when he arrived and what his name is.
That's awesome. That'd be great.
Is there anything else before we wrap up that you'd like to share specifically geared towards your website or the internet marketing?
Yeah, I would like to just kind of speak about transparency, and then I'll leave it there. But I feel like it can be really easy when you're creating advertisements and you're making a website and you're building an online presence. It can be extremely tempting, I should say, to try to be someone you're not, and to sell yourself and your business as something that is just not true. And I think that, any of us are susceptible to falling into that trap. But for you to really get the joy that I believe that this industry and this business brings you, the only way to do it is to just be authentic and to be yourself. And if that means you've got 5 head and not 50 or 500, then so be it. Everybody had to start somewhere. And me personally, I like to know the real you. And so for anybody that's listening, I just encourage you to be yourself. Don't try to conform and be something that you think everybody else wants, because you just never know who's listening or who's watching.
Best advice I've heard all week. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us today. We'll be sure to put all of the websites that you mentioned, as well as your own, in the show notes so folks can go visit. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and away from your students to join us.
Thank you so much, Molly. I appreciate you guys over at Hired Hand, and I look forward to talking with you guys again soon.